Oh yes. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how to deal with your university exams. So this is not only applicable for your university tests, it's also applicable for your exams after university. For instance, your driving license test or any certification exam that you're going to try and pass. But if you're in the university and if you're going through the exam season, the exam week, or if the exams are gonna come soon and you're just worried and you need to hear some advice from a person that has done this, then this video is for you. So in the university, they don't care about if you visit the class or not, but what matters in the end is if you pass the exams. And I understand that this may add a little bit to the stress of this study program that you may be going through. Now, in my study years, the first ever exam that I've wrote was a math test, a pre-calculus test, and I wasn't worried at all because it was just a placement test, a level test to see if we know enough mathematics or not. And depending on the outcome, we were supposed to take a certain course, a pre-calculus course. So before the exam, I was not worried. But after the test, I wanted to go home. I just wanted to run away because during the test, I had the hardest 60 minutes of my life up until that moment. Now, I'm not trying to scare you or intimidate you before your exam. All I want to say is that the university tests, although they don't seem like they bite, they do. And they matter because this is all that counts in the end into your GPA, unless you have a project or something else which you barely, or let's say seldomly have. So exams are important. That is the bottom line. Now, it is important to understand that not everybody is the same. So the thing I say now, or the little tips I'm going to give you from my experience, they may apply to you. They may not apply to your friend, or oppositely, they may apply to somebody that you know, but not all of them may apply to you. However, I will try to share the most general tips that I believe can help anybody during their university time. So in the university, there's plenty of space where you can study. If you have a library, you can visit the library and sit there for hours and nobody's gonna ever bother you. And if you have a study room in your dormitory or wherever you're staying, that could also do the job. For me, having written at least 300 midterms, I can say that choosing a place where I'll study was the most important decision before an exam. If you do not have a place where you can consistently study without distractions, or a place where you can focus, spread all your books, all your material all over the table and just write, jot down whatever you need and repeat things and memorize things. If there's no place like that, the first thing that you have to do is find a place like that. It could be a university library. It could be a common study area, which usually are allowed, especially if they're in dormitories, but they're still better than your dorm room. But you have to understand that if you want to be successful, you need to study, and to study you need a place, right? Before everything, you would need to find yourself a place where you can study, and here you can experiment a little bit. What I did in my university time is I first chose the library because it was just huge, beautiful, and it was silent. And after I studied in the library, I realized that my midterm scores are okay. So I decided to stick to it, right? But I couldn't go to the library all the time. For instance, in the exam weeks, the library would get super full. And the only choice that I had is to sit in the room. And because I was so used to the library's silence, I wasn't able to focus in my room. So what you should also do is you should try and be flexible. Don't only attach yourself to one place. Don't fix it. Make yourself flexible. Enjoy the study area of your dormitory, and then the next week go to the library and try to study there. This can definitely help you to manage your stress level during your exam period, right? Because if you attach yourself to one place and the next day it's not there, next day the seats are not available, or the next day it's not the way it used to be, then that can actually add to your stress, or that can diminish your performance, which is not what you want. Yeah, you want a steady, progressful, nice grade, nice GPA, and for that you need to be flexible in a sense. The other thing that I would suggest you is to determine whether you're comfortable studying with others or if you're comfortable studying by yourself. Now, I had a friend that used to just gather all his friends, block off a section in the library and sit with them and study there for all of his exams. He would just make it a routine where he had all of his friends around in the exam period. And those people were comfortable studying with each other, so they were always whispering in the library. They were going on breaks together, they were having lunch together, they would come back to the library and study together until late night, and then they would all go to the rooms together. However, sometimes it is not possible to study with others. Sometimes it is just too distracting. It might be that for some exams you would need to study alone, especially there where you need to figure something out from scratch. There where the concept was unfamiliar to you, there where you have never seen it before, there where you really need to take your time compared to the others. You know, your friends might know some concepts very well, but you might be unfamiliar with them. So when you study with your friends in such a situation, you would automatically feel kind of bad because you don't know the things that they know, and you would either feel like they're too much ahead of you or that you're pulling them back, right? That you're pulling them down. So this type of feeling, this type of an outcome is something that I've realized in the first year of my study. I had a really, really weak physics and math background. But all my friends from my courses were pretty strong at those subjects. And what would take them 5 minutes to understand would take me at least an hour to understand, because I just didn't know the equations, I didn't know the concepts. It was very, very, very hard for me to catch up with my friends in the first year of my university. And I felt really bad in the beginning. I felt like I'm dumb. I felt like I had to study like double, triple time just to get where they are, right? And they weren't even studying that hard. And then I realized some things I knew better. For instance, my English was better than most of my friends, and I didn't have to prepare for any essays or English exams. I would just go and do it. On the other hand, with chemistry and physics, I had to solve at least 10 practice tests before I could go to the exam, whereas my friends would just go into the room ready after studying for a few hours and get the same score as me. So there will be times when you will feel like others are faster than you, and there will be times when you will feel like you are faster than the others. And that is completely normal in a university. I remember sitting down and watching a video on YouTube where a guy takes only like 1 hour to study before the exam, and then he aces all of his exams. And this is not because this guy is talented, I realized later. It is only because this person has a background. If I know a concept, if this concept is familiar to me, it's not going to take me long to just review it and solve questions. But if a person does not know the concept, it takes extra more time for this person to understand the concept and then later to be able to apply this concept and finally to be able to write an exam. So do not compare yourself with others. You are not coming from the same place as they come. You are not possessing the same background as they do. You're different. Whether it means that you have to study more or less, whether it means that you just need more time or you need to put more effort, you're different and you have to accept it. So finding a group of friends as the second tip might be useful for you in places where you just keep on forgetting things, where you need to memorize things, keep them in your head somehow, but you can't find a way to do it by yourself. And I had really great friends in the university that were able to explain basic concepts to me that I couldn't understand in the basic language that made it easier for me to keep those things in mind. These people were literally magicians. They were better than professors, and you're gonna find people like that in the university. Hell, maybe you are somebody like that, so do it for others. Try to help them understand concepts easier. But if you don't have any friends like that, that's also not a problem, because with time you're going to understand how to grasp things, how to become faster at memorizing or understanding things. You're gonna find your own methods, all right? And this is the next thing that I want to come to. Everybody should know themselves. And for that, you need to observe yourself and you need to observe your performance. For instance, if you did a set of things like repeat something 10 times or solve some questions, and if that helped you to perform well on an exam, that means that works for you. And by observing that it works for you, you will be able to categorize that certain action as your preparation method. And then you can use this preparation method later, and if it works again, then you will be sure that this is what helps you and this is something that you should be doing before those types of exams. At the same time, there will be things that don't work for you. You need to take note of those things as well. For instance, for me, when I was taking the physics course in my university, we had a really thick topic book, the physics book. And I didn't understand the concepts in the class, so obviously I needed some material to study. And back then, we didn't really have lecture notes, it was not digital, it was all before Corona, so all we had was a big, thick textbook, right? I would take that textbook, go to the library, and just try to read it. It was not always necessary to read it. The concepts in the textbook were too detailed. We did not cover all those topics in so much detail in the course, but I didn't have any other choice, because if I skipped one page in the textbook, I wouldn't understand the next one. So I had to read everything step by step, page by page, and it would take me a lot of time. And I realized that although the textbook helped me understand the concepts a bit better, although I could kind of relate to those concepts, imagine them in my mind, and although the examples in the textbook were useful for me to gain some practical skills, I would fail the exam each time I prepared from the textbook. So what I did is I asked my friends for other methods, the other things that I can do to study. And they introduced me to practice tests. These are basically the past papers that the students from the previous years took as their midterms or finals or quizzes. And by solving these practice papers, you are meant to grasp the practical side of the concepts a bit better. That way, by solving those questions, you can simulate the exam, and on the exam, the question is not going to be unfamiliar to you, and the concepts are going to be pretty easy to solve because you've done it once already, right? So I started doing that for my physics and my chemistry and my math tests, and believe me, I had improved so much just by solving a couple of practice tests. But the problem was I realized it too late. I realized it only then when I understood that textbooks are not helping me. If you're already doing that and that's not helping you, then it might be useful to visit a certain textbook. Just open it, read it, and see if it helps you. It doesn't help you all the time, but it might help you with some concepts. Again, be flexible here, right? In one exam, which is more conceptual, you might need to read the textbook. On the other hand, for other practical exams or exams where you have to solve things fast and just know the solution process, and this is the key word, the process of solution, how to solve that long step problem right. In those cases, solving the past papers may be a better decision for you. So, I have experimented a lot in my university bachelor's years. I studied in the library and I tried to study in the room. I tried to study with headphones on and without. I tried to study with textbooks and with past papers. But I guarantee you, nothing can help you better than tutorials that are available on the internet. There are so many tutorials available on the internet, and the times are changing. So with the improvement of artificial intelligence, resources like ChatGPT, there are endless numbers of materials available for you to get ready from. Back when I was getting ready for math for my pre-calculus test, which I really sucked at, I started watching a channel on YouTube called Organic Chemistry Tutor. And I don't know if you ever watched this channel, but that channel was just amazing. The guy knows the concept so well that he can explain them, and it's easy to understand. It's very practical. You get to apply the things you learn by solving the problems that he gives. Basically, that was the perfect resource for me to get ready for my exams. And so I started applying it. Before each exam, I started watching some tutorial videos on YouTube. Whatever the concept was that I had to learn, for instance, the topic name is the energy equation. I would just type the energy equation on YouTube and find the most viewed video on YouTube and try and watch it. And believe me not, even if the video is not that useful, whatever you're gonna hear is still going to improve you. It is going to improve your subconsciousness. It is going to help you understand the topic just a bit better. If you are confused, if it's an unfamiliar topic, if the teacher or the professor or the tutor didn't explain it well, then just go and find a video on YouTube or any other free resource and watch it. Or find a certain blog about that topic. I don't know, on the internet there are so many pages where people are explaining things better than professors. See, the fact that your professor is given that course doesn't mean that he knows the best. I am also a teacher. I've been teaching over 80 students one-on-one. But to be honest with you, before the class, I'm always too lazy and tired to prepare something the best way I can, right? And the professor also comes late to the class. The professor also gets tired. The professor also skips some things just because he's a human. This, of course, doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to your professor or shouldn't visit your lectures. Sometimes visiting lectures is more useful when you just want to grasp the concept on the surface level, or if you just want to not feel alone while studying, right? But at other times, it is very important to see alternatives, to try the YouTube videos, to read some blogs. That's gonna definitely help you. Now, we have talked about a study place. We've talked about a study group. We have talked about observations and developing methods that work for you. And we have talked about the free resources on the internet. Sometimes the courses are so hard that you do not have the desire, that you do not have the will to even open the book and go through that concept. Sometimes it is so unattractive to try and pass the course because it is just extremely complicated. I had that with my differential equations course. That was considered the hardest course in the aerospace engineering program, in the second year of our program, and honestly, I didn't see the point of studying that. And it's fine. You don't have to pass all the courses with AA. You do not have to be perfect at everything. I've had times when I had a 4.0 GPA in 2 semesters, and I've had times when I had 3.2 GPA, and I've had times when I almost failed the course. It is very important to understand that nothing is ever going to be to your liking. Not everything is for you, right? And unfortunately, in the modern education program, they try to squeeze everything into the curriculum so that you have to take a little bit of all the subjects and in the end, decide what you want to do in the future and specialize in that. So what I suggest is, if you have zero will to study for a certain course, if it just doesn't work for you, if you can't motivate yourself, if you can't understand the subject, if you're smart but it just doesn't work, then don't force yourself, all right? And if it happens repetitively in many courses, then you should actually ask yourself a question if whether the program that you chose is for you. It is never too late to change your program in the university. You could just use the courses that you have taken before to transfer them into another program and start studying something new. But studying new things, instead of studying something that you don't want, although it's harder to transition, will be much better for you in the long term, because then you will do the job that you like, or you're going to keep yourself busy with the things that you actually enjoy, instead of just keeping the things in your life that you chose in the beginning when you were too young and didn't understand things. Now, this video is specifically for those who are trying to get ready. There's always going to be a group that doesn't care, that just wants to pass. They're just going to try to find any possible way to cheat, any possible way to fake their own papers, their own knowledge, to just pass a course because they had to take it, right? Now, if you're one of those people, then I'm sure there's things that you like in life, but if examinations are hard for you, then cheating or trying to pass the course in any way possible isn't the solution, because in the end, you're going to see those subjects again in life. I mean, if you're studying engineering, then in the end you're going to become an engineer, hopefully. Otherwise, don't study engineering, because it's a 4-year program which is going to take your time, and if you want to be a cashier at the end, or if you want to just mop the floors of a shop, you don't have to study engineering. That's too much money, too much time, too much effort, and life is too short for that. I can tell you, because my university years passed very fast, but now I have to deal with work. So, if you're a person that really wants to pass those tests but doesn't know how to, and these tips were useful for you, then I have some more. But we need to talk about an issue of stress. As I said in the beginning, there are people that need only 1 hour to prepare for a test just because they have the background knowledge already, and so for them the exam is never stressful. But if you are somebody that is seeing those concepts for the first time in his life, and you have to write a test, and you were hardly able to find motivation to study, but you studied those things and now you're unsure of how your performance is going to be like. You just don't trust yourself. You don't know if you're going to pass or fail. You don't know if you know enough or not. Then let me talk about that with you. There's going to be a time when you're not going to be sure if you've done enough. In fact, for me, it was before each of my midterms. Especially in courses that you have to be specialized at, or that you have to have background knowledge for. You might be a little stressed before passing an exam. And you can only do a limited number of things as a human because you have a time limit. You have an energy limit. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to socialize with people, that's a fact. Without socialization, you are not going to be able to stay sane in the university, okay? And everybody socializes differently, but whatever it is for you, you need to socialize. You also need to take rest from the study. It doesn't have to be socializing, but it could just be looking away from the computer screen or going on walks, right? So it's always going to be like that. If you're taking a hard test, you might be unsure if you're ready or not. You might be not confident. You might be emotionally not ready for the exam. I just want to say that's normal. It is normal because we're all human and we have doubts in ourselves. But let me tell you something that nobody's ever gonna tell you. This lack of confidence, this emotional instability is good for you. If you were confident that you're gonna get 100 on a test and you just go in there and not even exert any effort into writing your best paper, then you're not gonna get 100. On the other hand, if you have prepared enough, but you're not sure, what you're gonna do in the exam is you're gonna double check your answers. You're going to try and be extra careful. You're going to always doubt yourself, and that is going to actually help you verify the correctness of your answers in the procedure. It's going to also help you be 100% prepared because you will be just going over your notes every 5 minutes, and that way you will be getting ready harder than anybody else in the room. That not only happened to me in the university, and that's why I said in the beginning of the video, this is for any test after university. My driving test, the theoretical driving test that I had, there was a huge queue to the test room. And although I prepared for around 3 hours before the exam and for a few months before the exam day, standing in that queue, I was still going through practice questions and solving as many as I can, and then checking my solutions and seeing if I did it right or wrong. And believe me not, the only reason I passed that theoretical test was because I was standing in that queue and going through those questions and checking my answers. Because a couple of those questions came on the exam and I was able to surely answer them correctly because I knew, because I was super paranoid, that I'm going to fail. And I knew the exact answers because I had to make sure that I remember them. So, if you're not sure if you're gonna pass or not, don't just sit down, study more. The exam is gonna pass. You're going to continue with your life. You are not gonna have it chase you forever, right? So why don't take the few days or few hours that you have before the exam and just sit down and study in a solid manner. Just go through everything, repeat all the concepts. Try to get your hands used to the calculations if there are any, to the procedure if there is any. Try to repeat things aloud and Be paranoid. It's okay. It is normal. On the other hand, being too relaxed is not okay. I understand you don't have to be paranoid all the time. If you know the concepts very well, or if the subject is easy, then you don't have to be stressed. But there are also people that take everything easy. I'm not jealous of you just because I'm paranoid all the time. I actually congratulate you. But as a person that takes everything easy all the time, you might know it also doesn't work all the time. Sometimes you need to be hard on yourself. You can celebrate yourself later after the exam, right? So that's that. Now I need a refill of the tea. And while I'm refilling my tea, I want to open another topic which might be very important for those who are struggling with stress in the university. Let's talk about sleep. So, as a person who stayed in a dormitory with 4 other people and had to wake up every night just because somebody is scratching their legs or snoring, or coming to the dormitory very late because they were out getting drunk, I had to go through a lot of sleep issues in the university. And I started putting on earplugs every night I went to sleep in the first semester of my studies, because I wasn't used to staying with other people, and it was just impossible for me to fall asleep when everybody is just walking around the room. So anything that can help you, as long as it is healthy, it is useful. If you have to put on earplugs, put on earplugs. If you have to wear an eye mask, wear an eye mask. If you have to cover yourself with a blanket, do that. You're not paranoid, you're not crazy. The fact that your roommate can sleep even when the light is on and the windows are open and everybody's having a party doesn't mean that you have to be able to do that, right? At the same time, if you're a person that can sleep comfortably, then you can even skip this section because we have nothing to talk about. But I know there will be times when you can't fall asleep because tomorrow morning you have an exam at 7 o'clock and you will be searching YouTube for how to fall asleep fast videos, or trying to find yourself some sleeping pills, right? Now, that's not healthy. Solutions to sleeping come way before you have to sleep, not at the moment when you have to fall asleep. You are not going to solve your sleeping problem in one night just because you can't fall asleep and you need to because you have an exam tomorrow. That's not gonna work. So let's talk about that in a really, really, really detailed manner. Sleep is a science in its own, but I can tell you things that can work for you in the long term. And I can also give you some tips that can work for you in the short term. In the long term, you have to have a sleep routine. If you know that your exam week is coming and you're staying in the library until 2 a.m., but your exams are going to be at 7 a.m., you have to change your schedule. Because your body, your organism, your mind is used to sitting until 2 a.m. and studying, observing, taking in information, thinking, overthinking. And if you go to the bedroom with that mind, and if you try to fall asleep at 1 a.m., it might be a bit hard for you. It might be impossible. And then you're going to lay down there wondering why you can't fall asleep, why your body doesn't listen to you, and why the things don't work the way you want. You're going to start blaming the world. You're going to start regretting your schedule, your routine. You're going to start hating everything. And the next morning, who knows, you might be depressed, right? So change your routine. Change your schedule. There was a time in the corona when I had to wake up at 8 p.m. because it was warm outside in the daytime. I had to study through the night and the morning and then go to bed in the noon. There was also a time where I had to wake up at 5 a.m., study through my morning, go through my day, and go to bed at 9-10 p.m. There will be times where you have to change your schedule. Don't be a one-dimensionally working robot. Be somebody that can be just flexible, adjustable, and able to change his mind and his schedule. That is important. So you have to understand when your exam times are going to be. And if you know that, if that information is available for you, then go ahead and see if your schedule works for those times. I had a moment when I was studying until late night. And as I said a few minutes ago, there was this differential equations course whose exam I was so afraid about because everybody just made me scared of it. Everybody said that passing that exam is really difficult. That was a final test, so it counted the most points and I had to be perfect to be able to pass that course. Because if I failed that course, I wouldn't be able to proceed with my university year. I would have to repeat the entire year because other courses were connected to this course, right? So with my bad schedule, what I did was not recognize anything. I didn't change my schedule. I just went on studying until 1 a.m. every day and went to bed at 2. Then came the exam day. The exam was meant to be at 7 in the morning. That was the craziest exam time I've ever had. I hated it, but I couldn't change it. There were 80 other people that had to take the exam at the same time as me, so I just had to go with it. And the night before, I went to bed all of a sudden at 10 p.m., although my normal routine was 1 a.m. And guess what? I couldn't fall asleep. Was I crazy? No. I was crazy for thinking that I'm going to fall asleep, although that was outside of my normal sleep time. But when I wasn't able to fall asleep, I just went paranoid. I started searching YouTube for fast falling asleep videos. I took a few calming pills to calm my heart rate down. And I tried to fall asleep, but couldn't. So I had to go to the bathroom every 1 hour because of excitement in the night. And I also woke up my roommates. And guess what? I did not fail that exam. And I realized something very important. You do not need to sleep 8 hours before the test to pass the test. You don't need a 6-hour sleep. You could go to the exam with 4 hours of sleep. If you are prepared enough, if you know the concept, you don't need to be 100% awake, because if that exam matters for you, your survival instinct is going to kick in and you're going to perform, in fact, outperform your own potential. Maybe you will realize that later in some of the tests, which you just have to pass, things work, right? And they work magically sometimes. But it's not going to be always like that. So you better find yourself a suitable routine that you can follow and follow it. Don't hang out with your friends just because you had to socialize in the exam period. Don't go and eat in the night because that's going to give you even more energy. It's not going to make you tired. You're adding energy into your body. How do you expect to fall asleep if you ate 2 large pizzas and a dessert and now you're laying in the bed thinking, I need to move? It's all logic, but we don't realize these things because they don't matter in the long term for us. In the short term, we need them. But in the long term, we're just too lazy, right? So you have to realize that it's a long-term problem which has a long-term solution. But now let's come to the short-term solution. If you desperately need to fix your sleep schedule because you have an exam week and you haven't been able to fall asleep for a few days, which I had I wasn't able to fall asleep for 1 week. I was on 2 hours and 3 hours of sleep every night, and any noise that I could hear from my roommates was waking me up. I was paranoid. That was the third year of my university, which was meant to be the hardest year, and it was the final exam period. Let me tell you what's not a solution, and let me tell you what is a solution. So what's not a solution? Sleeping pills. Sleeping pills are not a solution, because sleeping pills have a half time of 20 hours on average, which means that after taking a sleeping pill and sleeping, if you have a sleep, it is still going to be in your system, and you might feel sleepy, tired, or dizzy, or just not awake during your exam, which happened to me after taking a sleeping pill. But it's also not a solution, because you're basically putting in something that's not necessary in your body. So don't take sleeping pills because you have to sleep for 1 exam. Don't do it for 2 exams. Don't do it for 3. Don't get yourself into that position. Don't get used to it. You could easily get used to it, and then you would just ruin your every little exam and sleep, because you got used to taking sleeping pills. Now, what is a solution then? What is a short-term solution to a sleep problem? Realization. Sometimes we're just too caught up in our mind thinking that we must sleep, that sleep is just necessary, that sleep is so important that if we don't sleep, we're gonna die. That is not true. The body is a thing that renews the cells while we're asleep. And sometimes it does not need to renew the cells because there are no bad cells. Sleep is a process which is not only for your mental stability, it's also for your physical stability. And if you haven't been moving all day long, if you've just been studying and you haven't been able to fall asleep, don't be afraid. Your body does not need so much sleep, at least for that 1 week. If you can't fall asleep, fine. Go and fall asleep. Sleep. Take a nice nap. But if you can't, don't panic. Realize that you don't need it as much. It's not going to make your exam performance worse. If that exam matters for you, then you do not need a good night's sleep just to pass it. You need knowledge to pass it. You need to be confident to pass it. If you are doubting yourself, it's also fine. That doubt is gonna make you pass the exam better. But sleeping is a concept which we should be flexible about. And then again, we'll come to the concept of flexibility. Be flexible. You don't have to need 8 hours of sleep. You don't have to take pills just because you had only 6 hours of sleep last night. Hell, you could even go 1 week with only 4 hours of sleep every day. It's not gonna be like that forever, is it? You only have 1 exam week, or 2, or 3. And there's gonna be days where your body is so tired that you're just gonna fall asleep without a problem. At the end, after I wrote about 4 exams in that week where I wasn't able to fall asleep, I had a really good night's sleep one night. My body was just tired. I couldn't take it anymore. Yes, I was paranoid. Yes, any small noise would wake me up before. But on that 4th night, I just couldn't do it. So I slept for 7 hours. The next day, problem repeated again. I could only sleep for 4, but that 7 hours made me realize that in the end, my body functions. And your body does function. It's just the excitement. It is just the lack of confidence. It is just the anxiety of that big test coming. You're not alone. It happens to a lot of people. Now, that one friend that used to take 10 people to the library and could study flexibly, he was also very comfortable with sleep. He never had problems. And I was always jealous. I was thinking to myself, how is this guy falling asleep knowing that there is a life-changing test tomorrow? And on the next day, he told me that he wasn't able to sleep as well. I realized that I'm not crazy and I'm not alone. And you're not alone either. Sleep is something that you might need, but not at the same level all the time. So don't kick yourself in the butt just because you weren't able to fall asleep. So to sum up, you need a study place. You might need a study group. Not always necessary, but you might. You definitely need to figure out your own study methods. You need to know what works for you. And you need to apply those methods. But also be flexible. They won't work all the time. They might work for some exams, some subjects. And some other methods might work for the other subjects. So observe, take note, repeat, and see if it works. Also, being depressed or being excited before the exam or during the exam might even make it better for you. It might make you check your mistakes. It might make you memorize things better. It might make you focus better on the exam. So embrace it. Don't be scared of that. And if you're a person who's struggling with sleep, just understand that you don't need as much of it during the exam weeks as you think you might need. Right? That is important. Lastly, I want to mention something else, and it's also important for me right now because I'm writing my master thesis. I'm done with my exams in the master's program. I have gotten my bachelor's certificate. I finished bachelor's 3 years ago. So I want to share something with you as well as with me that must act as a reminder to us all the time. If you're going through a hard university life, and if you want to get that diploma, if you want to finish that program, remember this: you have to be able to enjoy it. Enjoy your preparation time. It is a ritual in its own. You just go to a place where you can just sit down and learn something new for a few hours. And then later you can apply that knowledge in an exam and prove that you're actually knowledgeable. Later in life, you will need those skills at work. You will not need all the skills, but you might need some of the skills that you have learned during your examination times at work. And those skills will be useful. Those skills will decide your future salary. They will. If you're an engineer, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, these things that you're learning, they're not for nothing. You're learning them for your future profession. You're going to need them. This is the reality of life. No matter what anyone on the internet says about not needing the skills that you learn in the university. Yeah, of course, if you study in a really bad university, then I'm sorry, you might not need everything that you're learning. But if you study in a prestigious, good university where they teach you a lot of cool stuff and you find it cool as well, then enjoy it. Those things, they don't always come the way they come during the university years. Most probably, once you're done with your bachelor's or master's, you're never gonna open a book again. So enjoy those things while you can. Take your time. Make it a ritual. Make it count for yourself. It's not only good that you get a nice grade in the end. It's also good that you realize that you can learn, that you realize that you can do it, that you realize that you are not average all the time, that you're above average at sometimes, maybe even all the time. And if you are below average, it is always good to study and realize that you can come above average in some instances. And if you keep it going, then you will always be above average, right? Nobody is ever going to succeed without effort. And those who succeeded without effort are going to lose it very fast. Because success is not something that comes and stays. It goes away. You have to be able to maintain it. And if you don't exert enough effort, you will lose it. That's the way success works in life. So, even if you receive $1 million today, those $1 million, if you don't invest them or you don't somehow keep their value by putting that money into gold or real estate, whatever, that money is going to lose its value in 10 years. The same $1 million that you have today are not going to be the same in the future because of inflation. anything that comes with ease goes with ease as well. So you have to understand that if you want to be successful, you have to always exert the effort. And the way you exert the effort matters. So hopefully this video acted as a little bit of support if you want to know how to overcome the exams in your school, how to hopefully be successful in them. Remember those things. Remember that you have to be flexible. Not everything is gonna always work for you, but some things will work for you, and those things you have to realize, write them down, and use. And sometimes problems are bigger in our mind than they really are, so stop thinking about it. Okay? You don't really need so much. Sometimes you need just a little bit, and a little bit matters. As they say, the less is more sometimes. Thank you for watching. I hope it was useful. I really enjoyed my cigar and my tea, and I'll catch you in the next one.